We should laugh a lot. Okay, back to Joe and his brother John. So we've got these two young men in the house, both living totally different lifestyles. The only reason they're living together is because they're brothers. Cousin Paul visits and he's got a bad cough. Sorry mate, I've got a bad cough. Now if you could see under a microscope what flies out of the mouth with a cough, you'd be horrified. What's actually flying out? Lots of these little guys. They're busy. They're real busy. Cough, cough, cough. They all land on Joe. They look into Joe and they go, whoopee, a feast. Because what's their food? Yeah, they're the garbage collectors. They love cell damage. That's their food. They're like a maggot. In the war, if medical supplies were few and men had ulcers, they would allow the blowflies to lay the maggots in their wound. And the maggots would eat up the wound beautifully, but the soldiers never said ouch. What would ouch mean? Taking a nip out of live fish. They don't eat, that's not their food. It's like you eating your dinner then eating your plate, you know. It's different food. And it's a very good illustration, the maggots, as to these little microorganisms. They only eat waste. That's what they eat, is waste. So here we have Joe. All the little microorganisms jump in him. How does he feel by the end of the day? Oh, because I have to tell you, they're having a party. No? They're having a party in there. There's such a good food supply. And what's the waste given off from these things like? Pretty toxic. So how does Joe feel? Oh, he goes to bed feeling, and in Australia we call it crook. He feels real crook. That means he feels real sick. Just educating you on our language. Now, when Paul came in, John walked in the room and said, hi Paul, and Paul went, hi John. Sorry mate. They went all over John. And I looked into John, nothing to eat. Huh? Nothing to eat. So John didn't get the cold, have you noticed? See, Pasteur's theory states that a germ makes you sick. Well, how does Pasteur explain John? You see, Pasteur only had half the theory. And on his deathbed, he admitted it. On his deathbed, he said, Bernard was right. Who's Bernard? Bernard was a contemporary at the time of Pasteur. Bernard said, or Pasteur said about Bernard, he said, Bernard was right. The microorganism is nothing. The terrain, which is what he called the body, is everything. And this little illustration showed us that. Who got the cold? Joe. Because these guys had a food supply. Who didn't get the cold? John, because there's nothing to eat. You see that? Notice what Pasteur said. Forget the germ, because remember, they change roles depending on the environment. And you might get a test and the doctor might say, oh, you've got this bacteria, but by the next day it could have evolved into another type again, depending on the situation around it. But let's just say, for illustration's purposes, that John's just been on a surfing holiday to Hawaii. He had to catch the plane, couldn't get organic food very well. And there's a little bit of waste in his body. I notice on my morning walk, if I've been flying, I cough up lumps. I haven't got a cold, but there's mucus building up and I cough it up. And I say, whew, that's one plane trip. There's another plane trip. You see, we have organs of elimination. And when you fly in a plane, you get some toxic fumes. And so, let's say John has got a little bit of waste in his body. But you know, we've got a self-healing organism, a self-cleansing organism. And by the end of the day, John's a bit sniffly and he goes, uh-oh, I'm having a house clean from my holiday. See what he recognised? That's all a cold is. That's why they'll never find a cure for the common cold. Because the human body needs to have them occasionally. Aha. So you know what John does? Starts drinking the water. You want a clean house? You use lots of water. You want clean dishes? Lots of water. You want a clean car? You've got to change that bucket many times. You want a clean house? Drink lots of water. Then he goes to the gym and he does a real workout. Then he has a steam bath and a cold shower and a steam bath and a cold shower. Goes home and he puts ginger and garlic and cayenne pepper and lemon and drinks it down, and then goes to bed and piles the blankets up. Does a real good sweat overnight. Gets up a few times, goes to the toilet. What goes in must come out. Lots of water. Wakes up in the morning, more water, goes on a run. Comes back, has a hot shower, finished with cold. Did you hear that? Finished with cold. Feels great, goes to work. You see what he did? He just sped up his house clean. I've done it many times, especially if I'm travelling and I've got lots of meetings to give and I hear a sniffle or feel a sore throat. I go for it. Onion poultices on my throat, cayenne pepper poultices on my neck. I get up early and I run. How many people, when they get sick, go to bed? You've got to get out of that bed and you've got to run. Mind you, there's a time to sleep. And I've lectured all day, one Sabbath, after Friday night, having a very sore throat. I was able to conquer it. That's why it is important both to understand the principles involved in the treatment of the sick and have a practical training to enable one rightly to apply that knowledge. And who do you experiment on? Yours truly. Try it on yourself. You can do it. Anyway, next day he's back at work. Next day, they say, "Where's Joe? He's not at work." Now, I don't know if you say it in America, but we say it in Australia. "Oh, he's in bed with a wog." Have you got that saying? He's at home in bed with a wog. It's referring to Pasteur's theory. And if they ring him up and say, "What's the matter, Joe?" "Oh, that rotten Paul, he's given me his wog, his bug, his germ." You see that? Anyway, by 10 o'clock, Joe's feeling terrible, so he goes to the doctor. He says, "Oh, doctor, I got it bad." Doctor listens to his chest. Whoa, there's a party going on in there. Eh? They're really out of control. Doctor says, "Here, take this." And Joe loves this doctor because this doctor never suggests that he stops smoking, never tells him to stop drinking. He just gets out the script. Took him a while to find this doctor. He just loves him because he just writes the script. Antibiotics. What does antibiotic mean? Anti means against. Biotic means life. Do you know, if we're living organisms, we have to get away from this kill mentality. Anything that can kill a small organism has the potential to kill a large one. And what are we? We're large organisms. We're living things. We've got to get away from the kill mentality. Where does antibiotics come from? Alexander Fleming, 1929. He was growing bacteria in flasks in his laboratory. He came in one morning and they're all dead. And he did what every true scientist does. Newton's third law of motion: to every action, there is an equal and an opposite reaction. An action has happened on his bacteria to kill it. What was it? He looked up, looked around. On the next floor of the building there was an open window. And in the open window there was a plate of fruit with a mouldy orange. Do you remember it from school days? When I was a child and our bread was mouldy, my mum would say, "You're just eating penicillin, you'll be right." Because penicillin comes from the mouldy orange. Now the mould, Alexander Fleming called penicillium. And the mould waste, we're all familiar with the mould waste. That's the dust that comes off. The mould waste he called penicillic acid. Penicillin has saved the lives of thousands, granted. But what's happening today, and many doctors acknowledge this, is the overuse of antibiotics. And the question is not asked, why are these guys so active? If you don't clean up the garbage bin, the blowflies are going to keep coming. They're opportunist organisms. The human body can cope with 1 or 2 antibiotics